My name is Lyle Troxel from GeekSpeak.
I'm Miles Elam, also from GeekSpeak.
A little radio station show in Santa Cruz, California. And we're here with Steve Citron-Pousty, and he is, well, tell us about what you do.
I am a PaaS dust spreader for OpenShift, which is the platform as a service for Red Hat. And I live in the Los Gatos Mountains.
Oh, cool.
So
we're
it's
close
like
by.
we're doing a whole little like Santa Cruz Mountains,
yeah.
Santa Cruz Ocean thing right now.
Great. And your talk covered MongoDB and Node.
Yes.
And what's Red Hat doing with that?
OpenShift's platform as a service will allow you to spin that up with a command, right? Two commands, and you've got Node and Mongo running, but you could also have PHP or Python or Perl or Ruby or Node.js or Java. Any of those you can spin up with Mongo, PostgreSQL, or MySQL.
And are you managing all that, or are you focusing
we manage.
You personally, are you focusing across the whole thing?
No, I am just an evangelist, and so what I focus on is Node, Java, and Python. But we all have to be able to, like I just did ZenCon earlier this week, so I gave a PHP demo earlier this week.
But we're at JS.everywhere, so it's about Node.js.
Exactly, and I wrote a blog piece just recently about this same topic, so that's why I also gave this talk.
You got sucked into it. So
no, I enjoyed it.
What's the tool look like from, if I'm a developer, I install it, I want to launch on the framework, what am I looking at?
You're looking at command line tools if you want, a web tool if you want.
Let's talk about the command line tools.
Okay, RHC, app create, app name, Node.js, and we spin up Node.js for you. And then from that, we also do a git clone down to your machine, and from then on, it's all just git pushes.
Oh, so I start by your base app, basically.
You start with
and then every time I do a push, you're the master repo, and I get to throw back to you, and you relaunch.
That's right. Basically, what you do, you only use us for making infrastructure. We spin up the whole, or you're spinning up your app server.
Why are you better than Node.js?
Because there's a couple different reasons. One, we offer things besides Node, right? So usually a lot of development houses have things like, they might be PHP developers, there might also be Java developers, and then given the current market, Node is kind of new, and so what they'll be is like, I want to try out Node, I haven't tried it yet, and so we give them a way to try a no-risk way of trying Node. We're also open sourced, so there's no lock-in around what the platform is. You can take it and run it internally if you wanted to and run it. We also can, since we're Red Hat and we're open source, you can also pay us to bring it in-house if you wanted to as well. And then we also have the data stores right there locally on the machine as well. So those are some of the reasons.
And so let's talk about some of the choices you've made on data store. Are you doing your own physical servers? Are you hosting through somebody else? Are you putting it at S3? What are you doing for?
How deep do you want me to go technically?
Go for it.
All right. So
the more deep you get technically, the more we can ask
Gotcha questions. Right? I love that. I love that. So we spin up servers. No. But we actually, so since we're a Linux company, the way we do multitenancy, and so multitenancy is the idea about putting a lot of apps onto one server. The way we do it is we actually take advantage of the stuff baked into Linux. So when you say you wanted that app, we actually we have a cluster of a bunch of RHEL machines, Red Hat Enterprise Linux machines. And then when you say you want that app, on one of those nodes, we create a user. And that user is this big long hex string. And then what we do is we say, okay, this user can see these files and can't see these files. So we use SC Linux to lock down both the command you can run and where you can look. So your files are protected and other people's files are protected.
But it's not a VPS for every app.
No, it is. There's a big, let's just say yours gets spun up on node 1, and if there's 500 people or 500 apps on there, there's 500 users on that.
And you get the expertise of Red Hat to work out the Linux,
the SC Linux that's right.
issues.
And so then exactly.
Sorry, I've done that before.
I don't want to set that up. I love that you are.
That's exactly. Like I said, it was deep, and I don't do that part. That's like voodoo. So then the next thing that we do is we use Quota to say you get a gig of disk space. To start off with, and then we use C groups. So this is even more hardcore than SC Linux. So C groups says this user ID gets 512 megs of RAM, and this user ID, I don't know the exact number, but gets 10% of the CPU. So basically, when we spin up Node, we're spinning up an Apache for the proxy for you, and it's your own Apache. And then we spin up a node, and it's your own node. And if we spin up Mongo, we're spinning up your own Mongo. So if there's like 300 users on that node who are running Mongo, there's 300 MongoD instances actually running on that machine, each belonging to a unique user ID. So that way, if you write something that's really naughty, and it tries to peg the CPU, we'll lock the CPU down, and you only get you peg your 10%, but you don't affect anybody else. Or if you crash the node server, you're only crashing your node server. You're not crashing anybody else's.
So you're liking being I mean, does that same system work when you're doing Java?
Yes.
Really? How many virtuals can you get on there?
How many JBosses?
Yeah. You start running out of that 512 pretty quick. Yeah.
Well, I'll have to talk to, no, so everybody gets 512. So the idea with us is if you sign up for free, you get 3 gears. Those are your servers, those unique IDs. And those are each 512 megs of RAM and 1 gigabyte of disk space. And you get to run those for forever for free. So yeah, if you get 5 users who are paying you like $200,000 a day, and you're making money off of that one node.
Right. Okay. I'm set.
So I want to spin back to your talk though.
Okay. Sorry.
Well, you were talking
about.
Well,
I think it's just one thing. I will get spin out that talk, but I think it is good to talk about platform as a service a bit because it's a pretty new area. Okay. But now let's go back to the talk.
But I was thinking more along the lines of when someone is using your platform and they want to do a spatial query. In other words, I want to know is this particular object within this zone? Where am I? Am I in this hotel, or am I at the airport? So you're talking about going and firing up Node.js with a JavaScript that you've written. So what's the API in a nutshell? What's the type of access that someone's going to be having to try to query that information?
So who's the who? Like the question is, we're geared at developers, right? So the developer says, I want to write that.
That's what I mean, yeah.
Right, okay. So what they do is they would say, I want a Node server and I want a Mongo server. And then they would say, here's my spatial data. Like in my demo today, I SCP'd up the spatial data, used a Mongo import and imported all the national parks in Canada and the United States into the database, made it into a spatial database with my Mongo command lined in, did a command to ensure the 2D index, and now it's spatial data. So then I've got a Git repository on my local machine. I start writing Express code, Node.js Express. I start writing the demo's up on GitHub in our repository, but you can see that it's just a simple Express call where I take this URL /ws/parks, and when I do just that URL, return all the parks in the system. So then that maps to a function that actually does a MongoDB find, which is basically return everything in the data set, and spits that back out to the user as JSON. So to get that up onto the system, I write the code on my local machine. That's the technical term for writing code.
Yeah,
International symbol, sorry.
Definitely.
Symbol for writing code. Then you just do a git commit locally, then a git push. It gets pushed up to the server. We catch the push, we build and deploy, and that's...
So either you have Node.js spit out, taking whatever JSON came back or JavaScript in general, rendering a page, or returns back as though it were a REST call.
Right, so you make a REST call, and I return back JSON.
Standard stack of Node.js.
Standard stack of Node.js.
But you don't have to do it yourself.
There was no IT person to call.
Right.
There was no AMI to pick and then figure out how I was going to plug it into a load balancer and do all that stuff. We have a URL to start with. And
how does the Amazon there?
No. So time out. I think that in this world, there's what we at least like to break the world up into is 3 groups: software as a service, platform as a service, and infrastructure as a service. And I think they're really right for different use cases. So Amazon is great for certain use cases. I think, especially if you're going to be doing something funky with with IP addresses, or you need to build your clusters in a certain way, then I think Amazon is actually awesome for that, right? It allowed people to burst in the cloud and to build things that they never would have been able to even attempt to build, given the cost of putting everything into a rack and having someone with expertise.
Right, but everything goes as opposed to yours filling a specific niche, a specific problem that needs to be solved.
Our problem, the problem we're trying to solve is for 2 different groups. For developers, it's I want to get a server up and running and I don't like administering machines. And then for the IT group, it's I hate it when developers call me with those annoying calls that they need some new VM provision that has some new configuration of software on it. Instead, they can say, well, I took these 20 machines and I put OpenShift on it for you. Go provision until the cows come home. And at this point, I would imagine most IT shops would say, and when you're done, I'll move it to to production for you.
Right.
And in the future, I imagine it would probably be like, and here's our production version of OpenShift, and I'll just move it straight over there. Right. But at this point in the market, I think most is...
And there you have the caching model involved,
and that's the big thing you're offering is an entire stack that's I can play with it, use it as a service, but then I can go ahead and grab it and put it on my own Red Hat machines.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The only reason it's on Red Hat, Fedora, or RHEL is just because we do some stuff with SC Linux and C groups that the other distros don't have.
Yeah, it sounds like it. Yeah.
But we would love if this is a call to the Debian community. If you would put those pieces in, we would love to port it to Debian.
Right, but then you have to find someone who is capable with SC Linux, which is
just not a Debian environment.
I'm biting my tongue on that one.
No, let's be clear here. SC Linux, extremely powerful, but you need to have the knowledge.
That's right. You don't want to go down that path without knowing what you're doing. or on non-production.
Do you get to code enough?
I get to code all the time as an evangelist because I'm always making demos, right? So I get to code these. Like the spatial one is now this REST service, and then I want to put a phone app on top of it so that we can do check-ins. My next app I want to write after this is what's called a mail reflector, because we're doing stuff with SendGrid. And so what I want to do is simple little node, well, any app server in front, but a Mongo database where people put in their emails according to a list, and then you send a message through a REST call, and I reflect that back out to everybody who signed up for it.
And it's a quick thing because you were able to do it in a talk that only lasted 30 minutes.
That's right. That's right.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you, Steve.
It was great talking to you.
Yeah, it was great.
Thanks, guys.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you.
Bye.